not a YouTuber, just like making videos. And here we're going to go into the concept of this whole thing about post-traumatic slavery disorder or syndrome or whatever they call it. You know, the after effects of slavery. You know, and like, I get tired of people talking about, hey, why are you still complaining? Slavery was over 150 years ago. I'm pretty sure back in 1875, when black people were still talking about slavery, you know, there was some people, white people, and some bootlickers saying, what are you complaining about? Slavery ended 10 years ago. And there's, you know, people like David Carl and, you know, white Republicans, you know, will say that, you know, slavery didn't have an impact on blacks, or more so a negative impact on the way things are. Some may even say that it had a positive impact. Matter of fact, John Wayne, I kid you not, stated that slavery civilized black people. You know, this is coming from the Duke himself. So, but just examining, you know, the horrific institution that slavery was, and to say that it has no sort of, you know what I'm saying, negative impact on black people, that, you know what I'm saying, the after effects of slavery, you know what I'm saying, isn't ringing true. That is scientifically illogical. Now, some people say that, well, slavery didn't break up the black family, you know, because the black family was intact after slavery. Really? Was it really? I'm like, what sort of data do we have to prove this? I'm like, first of all, you know, people was broken apart, being sold to different plantations. So when slavery ended, it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying, white people that turned around and said, okay, well, your brother was sold over here, so we're going to pay for his train ticket, and we're going to pay for this person's train ticket. We're going to, you know, people, they were already discombobulated trying to figure out what to do. You know, that's the thing. Now, was, you know what I'm saying, was there strong black families after slavery? Yeah, just like there's strong black families now. But some of the problems inside the black community, the origin started during slavery. You know, there's no denying that. I'm like, when we look at, you know what I'm saying, babies being born out of wedlock, you know, multiple men having multiple children by multiple women, and vice versa. You know, that it started off in slavery, then had a snowball effect. I understand that, you know, after slavery, you know, there was black people, you know, with their Christian mind state, wanted to create a strong family, just like they see white people. I understand that, but then afterwards, you had, you know, Jim Crow. And Jim Crow came in many different forms. You know, like for instance, the East Coast and up north had their own versions of Jim Crow. Down south, they just called it that. And here's the thing about slavery, that people get this delusion that only the South had slaves. No, there was slave-holding states and non-slave-holding states. You take Maryland, was a slave-holding state. If you read Frederick Douglass' autobiography, Frederick Douglass never picked cotton. He never even picked tobacco, because there was other things they had slaves to do, just like labor. I'm like, nobody picks cotton now, you know, because of the machines. But he was a slave in Maryland, you know what I'm saying? That's above the Mason-Dixon line. Delaware was a slave-holding state. Missouri, Kansas, Indiana. So therefore, when slaves ran away up north, they ran to, you know what I'm saying, safe haven. Places like Philadelphia, all the way up to Canada. But then there's places like New York that was notorious of turning back slaves. Or some people, and when you're dealing with the abolitionist, you know what I'm saying, even though they wanted to get rid of the institution of slavery, doesn't exactly mean that they were black people's friends. There were certain economic conditions, poor white people felt that they had to compete with slaves. A lot of times, instead of taking it out on the slave master, they'll take it out on the slave and beat up the slave. Like for instance, take Frederick Douglass. He worked in a shipyard. He was hired out. A lot of times, a slave master will hire their slaves out. Be like, okay, you work in a shipyard, I'm going to have you work in a lumber yard. And they work just like any employee, except they have to take their earnings to their master. They have to live with their master, and so forth. Now, some people may say, well, why didn't, if these guys, unless the slave master is lingering over their shoulder, why don't they just run away then and there? Well, see, the thing is, it's very complex, because you had a lot of white people that were kidnappers, or wanted to do harm to blacks, and so therefore, the slave master, that being his property, he's looking, like if you harmed a slave, of course, like let's say a worker wanted to punch a slave out. Now, of course, the slave himself, can't file charges, but the master of the slave can actually file charges because you're damaging his property. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So therefore, when slaves were emancipated, all the slave holding state, all the people up north who had slaves, that was part of the Union, they had to, they had to let them free. But the South still wanted to hold on to their slaves, and the Slavs also didn't want to go under the rules and regulations overall of the North. They wanted to form their own nation. So that's where things get confusing, because they say, well, didn't the South fight to keep their slaves or whatever, and how did the North have slaves? So it's the whole entire slavery complex there is downplayed, and in a lot of ways it's kind of a mystery. But just doing simple, even just shallow research will open up your eyes into this institution. Now, we do know that slavery kept black people poor, that and other things, because slaves couldn't keep their wages, whatever. Our black people had roadblocks in front for them so they couldn't enterprise. Now, and I'm going to tell you how the concept of propaganda and brainwashing works. Sometimes it has a positive effect and it has a negative effect. Let's take America here. Now, when them Europeans got off the rickety boats, they had to sell them on this idea of America. The Statue of Liberty was a good salesperson. A lot of Europeans who came off this boat wanted to go back, But that's why you have people to this day constantly waving the American flag. I've lived in other countries. When I lived in Germany, I noticed that you didn't see the German flag all on people's mailboxes or in front of all these businesses. Not like you see the American flag here. Now, I understand that a lot of people, they get this sort of the nationalist bug. You see Mexicans here and Jamaicans here, constantly waving their flags. But they say if you go to other countries, you hardly ever see any other flag. That America, trying to sell the idea of America, had everybody waving flags, and then other people want to wave their own flag. But this whole flag waving thing, like like I said, if you go over to Germany, you're not going to see that many German flags hanging on people's mailboxes. Here in America, you will see that American flag more so than you would see the German flag in Germany, or see the French flag in France, or the Ecuadorian flag in Ecuador. You see what I'm saying here? So there had to be a bit of, mind probing just to get people, involved, or to give into this idea of America, especially in the early days when things were unstable. You had the Civil War. America had all these wars, and there was a whole lot of people saying, hey boss, I don't think we're going to make it. So therefore, another selling point to America is you have this proverbial underclass, permanent underclass, with black people, and it did make poor white people just feel a bit better about themselves, and knowing that there's people that are just going to be perpetually at the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Brandishing this idea of inferiority into the black mind. Now I understand that through all these trials and tribulations, you have black doctors, and you have black doctors and black people that are excelling and reach great heights and so forth. But a lot of the problems, and I understand that a lot of problems with black America are problems with white America, white Americans too, except with black people is just over sensationalized. But when I think about, you know what I'm saying, the lack of respect for black life through, you know what I'm saying, white people and black people, you know what I'm saying, as I said, the multiple kids by multiple, you know what I'm saying, this whole baby mama drama that started off in the breeding grounds there, and you know what I'm saying, and and you know what I'm saying, and I said this before, you know, about why do black people, you know what I'm saying, they hate the U.S. government or whatever, but constantly vote for a bigger government. I stated that the private sector failed us, so therefore we had to go to whatever sector, you know what I'm saying. It's, you know, relying on the better end of a double-edged sword. Yes, and when you think about, you know, back in the days, you know, before blacks got their rights, you know, black people didn't have, wasn't given birth certificates or death certificates or whatever. So therefore, what kind of data do we have so we can go do research about how many children was born out of wedlock? I think of this concept of black people being negligent parents, and its origin started off in slavery. It may have gotten worse now, but you know what I mean, slavery started the fire. You know, it sparked the fire, because a lot of black men back in those didn't know who their father was, because, you know, either their mother was just taken to a breeding ground, or their father was sold, or their father was the slave master himself, or some white guy. You know, Frederick Douglass stated that his father was most likely one of his mother's slave masters. So that's the thing there. So I understand that people are going to say, well, you know, well, back in the 30s and 40s or whatever, the black family. I'm like, what data do you have? I understand that there were good black families just like there are some now, because I come from one. I'm proof of this. But still, you had to have, after slavery, some of the problems, you know, in the black community had to have existed. You know, it was just that, you know what I'm saying, the white man's propaganda against us, his angle against us back then was different. You know, there we had so much like the slew-footed, you know, clown type black dude, the whole stepping fetcher thing. I'm not saying it doesn't exist now, but now the propaganda is that black people are, you know, ultra violent. Are violent people, and we're violent because, you know, we didn't have any fathers, and then you have the bootlickers coming on and coattailing behind white people. I'm not saying some of this, you know, there isn't some sort of truism in it. Like, yeah, you know, I mean, the destruction of the black family, you know, led to the way things are. So they're trying to make some sort of scientific connection here. No, some sort of that's not the word. Sociological connection there. But then there's also the pseudo-scientific thing of black people just being mentally inferior. So therefore, white people have, you know what I mean, America has many different angles, many different ideologies and philosophies on how things are you know, are the situation with the black nation. But as I said before, you know, I just read too many books. I do too much research, and only a fool, you know, would sit up there and say that, oh, it wasn't slavery because the black family was intact after slavery. I'm like, there's incidents of white men. I'm not. I'm going to save the rest for another video. But thanks for watching, and good night, gentlemen.